Today we're talking about mental health, which is, hello, huge for all of us. Thank you all for joining us. Welcome everyone. Happy July, happy Pride 365. This is It Gets Better Digital Pride extended on into July. And this show is In Conversation. It's a series where folks come and talk about everything that matters to LGBTQ youth. And today we'll be discussing all things mental health with our advocates and youth voices who know all about mental health and wellness. I think it's something that we've all grown into to get to know a lot better in the past several years. And so with us, we have Laynie. And Laynie
Hi.
is one of our youth voices, gamer, artist, and LGBTQ advocate. Yes, all of the things, all
Aw.
of the things. And we also have Arielle with us, who is a content creator, mental health advocate, strategist, leader in digital wellness, and is with IME, which I'm sure will come up as we have our conversation. So let's just jump right in. And as a kind of preface, we talk about mental health all the time and we have language to really access that conversation, but we didn't always, and we might not have even always known, like, hey, I need to check in on my mental health. So how do you all know that, like, you may need to check in on your mental wellness? Let's start with Lainey.
Okay, I think for me personally, it when be it becomes when I'm kind of disconnected from my own life. Like I feel like as if I'm like watching myself through a screen. It's like I'm doing tasks but not fully processing them. And I think when it gets to that point, I realize that something is wrong with how I feel in everyday life. And I need to take a step back and like realize that because I suffer a lot from like depersonalization and stuff.
And for those who may not know what depersonalization is, can you just define that briefly?
Oh, yeah, of course. Depersonalization is where it's a point in like a lot of mental issues where you feel as if you're not your own like person, like you feel very disconnected from your surroundings and like the people around you, and it can get so bad that you just like barely know what's going on, or you're just like going on automatic is how I kind of feel it is.
That's exactly what I was thinking when you were talking, is like autopilot, when we're just like
Mm-hmm.
moving, not feeling, just kind of just going. How about you, Arielle?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Super excited to talk about all things mental health. I think for me, like the ways that I know that I need a mental health break is actually in the consistency, right? That like I am really a big advocate of doing self care even when you don't feel like you need to. So in the sense that I don't view self care as something that you do when something happens and oh I need to self care from this, but it's actually a consistent thing that you need to do every single day because you're filling up your cup for the times that it's going to be drained. And so, you're not just doing self care on your off days, but you're also doing it on the days where like you really feel on, you're feeling really good. And then you self care a little bit more because you have that energy. It gives you a lot more room when you don't have that energy to already have a full cup. But for me, it's when I'm doom scrolling, I'm on my phone 24/7. I'm just like going through all the bad news in the world. Um, it's when, I'm realizing that, oh my gosh, it's like 5 p.m. I, haven't eaten anything today. So being really mindful of, the basics and the foundation is really helpful for me.
That I feel like everything that you ran off, we can all relate to so much, whether it's like scrolling, and sometimes as a need of necessity, we have to be in our phones for email, work, responsibilities, and forgetting to drink water, where it's like, oh my gosh, maybe I have a headache because I'm dehydrated. And
Yeah.
then we're dehydrated, tired, overworked, and kind of depleted, and then still going. So I think we can all identify with both of those moments that you all have expressed. So what are some of the things you do when you find yourself in this place of autopilot or of burnout? What do you do to help cope?
For me personally, what I do is I kind of like take a step back, view what I'm doing, view how because usually it's from overworking myself. I view how I'm overworking myself and I like realize I'm like, wow, I am pushing myself to the brim. I need to take a minute, relax. And at that point, I'll usually do something I love because, like you said, I'm a gamer. I love video games. So when it gets really bad, it's especially when I'm doing schoolwork, I'll like take a step back from my schoolwork. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a little bit of time. I'm going to play a game I like, and I'm going to have a good time while doing it. And I just kind of let myself get away from what's stressing me out and what's making me feel bad.
I love that. Self-care isn't always, meditating and lighting candles. Sometimes it's literally just doing what you love and playing a video game, logging on to The Sims, whatever the case is. Like, you love it, you enjoy it. We don't have to feel bad about those things. There is some form of rest in doing those simple things. Absolutely. What about for you, Arielle?
Yeah, for sure. I think that you touched on kind of what I was going to go into in the sense that self-care is not, a bubble bath or a face mask. Sometimes self-care is getting down and dirty and doing the work. So for me, it looks like journaling and like really just kind of get my thoughts on the page and journaling in a way that's like really non-judgmental, right? Like doodling when my mind wanders. That's fine. The journal is for me. I also think for me, I think about self-care as community care. So in the context of the queer community, self-care can look like spending time with my queer friends and knowing that like they get it. That also can be self-care for me.
That's a huge one, especially nowadays where it's just like being around some people that see you is priceless, is so restorative, and reminds you, like, okay, like, I got this. Can we do one of my favorite coping methods now together?
Yeah.
Yay! Okay, so this is literally just a breath, and I like to bring it in with a little bit of intention. And so breathing into the abdomen, into the diaphragm, and releasing both, and we can do both through the nose this time. So let's try it. Everyone, audience, all 30 million of you, join us for this breath. I'm going to place my right hand on my heart because I like to do that. If you would like to join, yeah, let's do it. Okay, and inhale, exhale. Oh, sometimes it's so nice. Like, I can definitely say for myself, there are moments where I realize that I wasn't actually breathing. Like, not breathing, and definitely not breathing with any intention. Thank you all. Um, so you brought up, Arielle, within our community, sometimes there are things that we face that are related to our identities, and our, whether that is just in our daily life, whether we are coming out, whether we are existing in queer in school or in work or with our families. When did you all become aware of any stress that may have been related to your identity specifically?
It's a really good question. I think part of, being in the community is, interacting with other queer folks. And even when you don't feel the stress yourself, you can feel it around. So for example, for me, it's quite a while for me to come out, but even when I was, closeted, I, could see the stress that my friends who were out were going through. And I think that that's part of, something that our community can really build up is the fact that your experience, there are a lot of different steps to it. And sometimes we're exposed to the steps that we're not at yet. And that can feel really overwhelming. That's kind of why imi, which, we're so excited to be sharing, and I'm sure that we will get to. That's part of why it's so cool, right? That like we have an opportunity to kind of build the foundation up, because when you're closeted and your friends who are out are going through something, you're like, well, wait, oh my God, is it just like getting worse from here? Like, how do I navigate this? I think that part of that is being exposed to that stress, but also part of it is the beauty of knowing that there's community there to support you. And then as time goes on, that, there are people who have done this before, there are people who will do this after us, and that we can really root ourselves in community building.
Absolutely. How about for you, Lainey?
I think I am very lucky to have been in a very accepting community around me, and I've been out for a very long time. But I think a lot of stress for me personally comes from the confusion that comes with my identity because a lot of times I don't necessarily know like what I am. And sometimes there's this like kind of pressure I feel for queer people to be labeled as something. Like I have to be bisexual. I have to be gender fluid. When I feel like queerness is such a massive overarching spectrum that I feel like can't even be put into words like what is what. And I feel like of course, these labels are incredibly useful for those who are confused and don't know what they are and want to figure out what they are. But I think at some point they can cause harm when people feel that there isn't a label to particularly describe what they are.
Absolutely. I mean, you see the hearts. I think that we've all been there in that space where it's like you look in the mirror and it's like, ah, like, or it changes. Like, I mean, we are fluid beings existing on a spectrum of light. And I think sometimes it's hard to find light in all areas of that spectrum when we are in a space, in a world that has not yet come to that full understanding yet. Um, so, yeah, I'm glad that you came up in a space where you were able to kind of explore and find that out and have some support. Um, and for those of us that may not be in that space, or even in those spaces where we feel completely supported, Arielle, you brought this up earlier. Community is so important and can be such a place of refuge. Lainey, how have you, or how has like community you've been able have how have you been able to turn to community for like support and care throughout your journey?
I will answer that really quickly, but my dog is like screaming at my door. So if you could pass that off to Arielle really quick while I let him in, that would be so kind of you.
Of course, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Arielle, community.
Yeah, oh my gosh, happy to take this. And I feel like now would be a great opportunity for me to talk a little bit about IME and kind of what the programming does. I think that, when we talk about queer community, it's, kind of what I was saying earlier, right? That there are so many people at different levels of community, right? There are queer elders, there are people who are just discovering their queer identity, and it can feel really confusing. And so one of the things that I'm here to share about today is this really cool tool called IME that an organization called Hopelab and It Gets Better kind of worked together and decided to create this. And basically, it's a tool for young queer people who are just discovering their identity and want to learn a little bit more. It has, questions about queerness or gender identity or stress and mental health. And I think that as we're talking about, people who are just coming out or people who have, been out for 30 years and still have questions about mental health. These can be really hard topics. And so to have kind of this one central place to go to, is fact. There are actual professionals that are working on this. And so I think that having these particular tools for young queer people can be really validating. And, just by spending time on the website, you feel the community, right? It's made by queer people, for queer people, and particularly young people, right? So youth, people who are, like maybe your identity, maybe you have questions about it, but you have the opportunity to really go into depth and learn more. I'm going to actually paste the website in the chat right now if one of the moderators could pin it. And yeah, it's a wonderful tool. But Lainey, off to you on community.
Um, I think community is incredibly important for me. So many people in my life are queer. Most of my siblings are, most of my friends are. And so I feel like queerness is something that's just commonplace in my life more than it is like something different. And I think that's been really great, like for me and beneficial because having this kind of unique experience that you can share with other people unabashedly and not have that fear of being like scared of what they'll say or what they do is so important, and just being able to be around people who know what you've been through.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we are empowered to create this community for ourselves. That is to me one of the most magical things about being queer. We've all heard the term chosen family, but we really embrace this notion that we can choose to feed into loved ones who feed into us, whether they are connected to us by blood or not. And sometimes it can be a little scary for those of us that are on our coming out journeys or might be, you know, in a fluid space in our journey and not know where we fit in the community. It is, I can say that it's always such a beautiful thing when we just be ourselves and allow the people who love us to love us. Which is kind of hard sometimes if we're hiding ourselves and keeping ourselves away to try to protect us and keep ourselves safe. We can actually kind of do the scary thing and be ourselves, show love, and allow the love that is going to return to us to make its way on back. Because I'm taking all the love, the good love that is. Are there people that you all look up to who have kind of helped you build that resilience and that self-love?
I think for me personally, I know I loop back around to my siblings a lot. Well, this is just the second time, but I think they are so incredibly important to me. I have two older siblings and one younger, and they, I think, are just pillars in my life that I feel like cannot be broken. And of course, this type of family can be whoever you want it to be. Just for me, it is my blood family. But having these older people that I know and trust with my life kind of just show me what to do and show me like how to be a good person is so beneficial. And I'm so glad I have them in my life.
Absolutely. How about you, Arielle?
That's beautiful, Lainey. Yeah, I feel like, you know, when we talk about queer people that we look up to, like obviously there are some phenomenal queer leaders in our space or historical queer leaders, but I think what I love about our community is that we can be like regular, and by being regular, we can be extraordinary, right? And so I look up to my queer friends, like my friends that are just out and living their lives and are maybe working on queer issues and also maybe not working on queer issues. You know, just people that are out and queer, or even folks that are closeted. I think sometimes when we talk about, you know, who we look up to and being proud and being prideful about being queer, we automatically associate that with being out of the closet. And I think that, you know, for my friends who are still in the closet, or, you know, a past version of myself that was in the closet, one can still be proud. And, you know, for a lot of different reasons, choose not to come out to different people or to different communities. And so just being pride by being regular. I think that that's kind of how I look up to my queer friends.
Yes. Regularly spectacular. I love that. Um, so we have the imi.guide now, which is amazing. It's such a great tool for anyone to access, like in your phone, on the web, on your iPad, laptop. But some of us have also, you know, gotten mental health care from professionals. And so I wanted to just talk about the equity within the mental health sphere. And yes, perfectly queer. Yes, it gets better, Mod. They're always on it. So what have you all's experiences been like with equity and inequity in mental health care?
Yeah. Do you want to start, Lainey, or would you like me to go ahead?
I can start. I think for me, of course, I am privileged. I'm white. That is obvious about me. But there are certain aspects of the mental health like system in general that I think really need to be worked upon, especially as someone who is queer and biologically a woman. And it's like I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression when I was 14, and I feel like sorry, my dog just made a really weird noise. I think a lot of it is very definitely white male based. I actually did an entire paper once on autism in women, and the amount of mental disorders that are kind of biased towards one gender or the other for their diagnoses is very like ill talked about, I think, especially with stuff like autism. Like women with neurodivergency are so ill diagnosed and underdiagnosed, and I feel like it is something that is not talked about enough, and I feel like should really be driven into, especially as someone who may have that but cannot get a diagnosis, or very very much struggles to get a diagnosis because of my gender and my like socioeconomic status.
That is such a crucial point. That is such a crucial point. How about yourself, Aria?
Yeah, for sure. I think part of the conversation, health and equity, and right, like Lainey said, the first off is privilege, right? Like being white, being cis. These are all things that, add on privilege, and also mental health within the queer community. Folks are really struggling with that. In content warning, I'm going to be talking about suicidal ideation in just a moment. But there are some really, damaging statistics that are coming out. For example, that 45% of youth have thought about or attempted suicide. And so when we talk about our community, it's also a matter of saving queer youth, right? And being there. Of that number, folks who are people of color or minorities are twice for that number. So being really mindful of folks, not only within the queer community, but different aspects within our community is really important. And part of it is, being open and having these kinds of conversations that I think, unfortunately, the rest of the world is not going to do it for us. It's not going to be like, hey, like within the queer community, like what exactly do you need? It's up to all of us to uplift the voices that are already and who are, being vocal and saying like, hey, not only does the queer community need support, but folks within the community need extra support.
Absolutely. And like you said, it is up to us. We can be empowered to find the care that resonates with us, to be able to talk to someone, a non-binary care provider, a trans mental health care provider, someone who identifies anywhere on the LGBTQ plus spectrum. There are professionals out there. They might not be next door to us. We might need to access them virtually or through the imi.guide that we have through the app. But we should all feel encouraged to find care that in which we feel seen, that we can identify with, because as Lainey brought up, there are factors, there are factors and biases that we have to acknowledge. And when we're seeking care, we want to be encouraged to, not be re-traumatized by the people who are supposed to be helping us. And unfortunately, historically, that has been something that many people have experienced. But today, we know that there are so many options for us. And also, we can be encouraged to become providers if we feel that passion and within our lives. We can work within the public health sphere in order that we can be somebody representing the rainbow on the inside, so that folks that are coming up will be able to have, the support, and we can ensure that they have the support and help, guidance, advice, whatever it is that they need.
Yeah,
You all,
uh,
oh, go ahead.
oh
Go
no,
ahead, please.
I was just gonna say what you were saying on like public health, like yeah, being queer and being in different fields, like being in different spaces, working in tech, in media, and what like all these different things, like being queer or just existing in and of itself is powerful and so yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. And it is always powerful, even in the moments where we don't feel amazing, where we feel a little, who am I right now? We can stand in our individual power, in our individual light, and know that we are amazing, period. And so, just so happy for you all to join us and have this conversation. So I have to ask, I think Lainey, you got a chance to hop in on this a little bit earlier, but I'll toss it back to you and to Arielle. What are some of your favorite self-care mental health activities, whether they are very zen and mindful, or whether it's playing Crash Bandicoot.
I think another thing for me, I brought up my dog earlier because he was being a little menace, but I think just being around like your pets, if you have one, is really beneficial to me because I love my dog. Like, hold up, I'm gonna turn my camera around so you can see him. Look at that cute little
Yes.
baby.
Oh,
Oh,
the puppy.
oh my
But like, I don't know. I think something about being around animals is just so beneficial and so relaxing. Like, there are studies showing that cats like make you happy or whatever, and like just animals are great.
Yes, and I love seeing the self-care activities in the comments. Feel free to drop those in.
Hmm.
Someone Jade Faye, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but we have bubble baths and playing The Sims, Jadelle Faye. Um, and how about yourself, Aria?
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah, I'm a really big journaler. I journal basically about everything that happens most every day. And part of that is doing it only when it's helping me, right? So I'm really stressed out about something, I'm going to journal. Or if I'm like, you know what, I'm not feeling it right now, being more focused on that, then I have to journal every single day and like get everything that happened down. Because that's more stressful than it is helping. I think what's also cool for folks in the comments who are, dropping some of their self-care ideas. Imi also has some cool self-care activities if you want to check it out. And just like ways to cope with stress, which I think is really cool. Another thing that I was talking about earlier is spending time with my queer friends, particularly if I'm stressed out about something that's going on. And just knowing that I'm in community with people who care about me. I think it's really hard, right? Because sometimes we get our self-care activities online, which is also the same place that can stress us out. And so that can feel really hard to manage. But being able to kind of compartmentalize, say, I'm going to just focus on this, and really going with that is the best way for me.
Absolutely. That is amazing. We had someone who says taking laps, so running. I love candles, incense, baths. I love the ocean, so I try to get into the ocean as much as I possibly can. And queer community, I am so grateful to you both for being a part of our community and for being beings who are all about positivity and health and wealth and all of that beautifulness. Um, this brings us to the end of our conversation today. Oh my gosh, yes, lavender, lighting candles, we love it. Yoga, so you all keep all of the self-care going. Remember that it doesn't always have to be work, but sometimes it is the work that we do so that when our battery is a little low, we have a backup generator to fall on. Continue dancing, continue singing, continue running laps, continue playing The Sims. Thank you all for joining us for this amazing month and extended month now of content. Thank you to imi.guide, to Hopelab, to Cal, to Laynie, and also to Arielle. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you all join us the rest of the year. We have so much content. Actually, a new piece that came out today featuring Chella Man, the amazing artist. We were able to do a beautiful profile and video with him, and we're so excited to share that with you all. So check that out on all of the socials, the full videos on YouTube. And our podcast, Perfectly Queer, is about to start. So thank you, everyone. Imi, Hope Lab, Arielle, excuse me, Laynie. Thank you all so much for joining us. And we will see you all next time.
Thanks so much.
Hi, thank you for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Of course. Bye. It was such a pleasure. Peace.